Hi, I'm Sarah and welcome to my art stream. I see I already have Bumbread on the line. Welcome to my stream. I don't know if you've been on before, but today we're doing watercolor. I want to talk to you real quick about supplies before we get started, just so you know what all I'm using. I've got watercolor paper, which I just used from like a pad, like a, just cold press pad. I've got two brushes. This is called a filbert when it's rounded like this. So you've got flat brushes, which are across like that, and then filbert is this rounded. These are also called wash brushes. This is a 3/4 wash brush, or it'd be probably about a size 10 or 12 filbert. This is called a round brush when it's pointy like that. That's the round brush. And this is a size 6. I've got a pencil because we are going to be sketching. With watercolor, because it's so translucent, meaning that you can see through it, it's really important for you to plan your drawing. Plan your painting first by drawing. Just lightly sketching out different areas that you want to, that you're going to want to fill in later. Okay. My colors. I'm going to just set these to the side for a minute. I've got, generally what you need is a yellow, a red, a brown. And I've got a warm blue and a cool blue. Now, some of you may have a little set like this, like something that comes in these little wells. This is perfectly okay. The only thing you need to be aware of is that your colors, maybe, for example, this is a little bit warm. So here is this color there. Well, I don't have a cool blue. And so what you can do to make a cool blue is mix a little purple in it. So this right here is this same color mixed with a little bit of purple, and it gave me a cool blue. And you can actually see next to each other how this is warm, it's got a little more yellow in it, and this is cool, it's got a little more purple in it. So that's the difference in temperature. Cool colors have more purple, warm colors have more yellow. Okay, so but you can use one of these, is fine. All right, I've also got a paper towel, I've got some water, and I've got a little palette to put my paint in. Now, what are we painting today? So let me just go ahead. If you look right here, right there, I have my Discord channel, and I always post my reference photos on my Discord channel. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up so you can see. Nope, that's not working. There we go. All right, so if you come out here, you can see the reference photos here. So this is what we're going to be painting today, these lily pads. But I always post the reference photos. I always post the reference photos the day of the drawing or painting, so you can go out there and take a look at it. And I highly encourage that you to follow along with me, that you use the reference photo. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So you're going to take a pencil. Now, if you are using watercolor paper, you want to use the rough side. There's a smooth side and a rough side. You always want to use the rough side that catches the water. So we're going to start out just drawing our lily pads. All right, so looking at the reference photo, I've got, it's ovals. We're going to be drawing ovals or ellipses. And draw them pretty light. I'm going to draw mine a little darker because I want you to be able to see them, but draw them pretty light. Now, the key to drawing a clean line or oval is, instead of moving your wrist, you move your whole arm. So like if I want to draw a line, if you move your whole arm, you're more likely to draw a straight line than if you just move your wrist. So there's a little trick there for you. Okay, so we've got some lily pads here. I'm just drawing some general shapes. You maybe want some coming off the page. See, I've got this one, like, that creates visual interest. Now I need to adjust my camera because I want you to be able to Oops. There we go. I want you to be able to see the whole paper. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to have one kind of in this corner. This one is going to be underneath that. Actually, I probably want to make that a little bigger. Here. Hi, Casmira. It's nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. So, are you going to be following along today? I've got watercolor paper. All I've done is I've just started drawing my lilies, or my lily pads rather. Okay. So we're just getting our general shapes in there with the pencil first. Today is going to be watercolor, but we're going to plan where we want everything to go. Okay, cool. Well, if you do the watercolor today, you can post in the Discord channel and we can take a look at it. Karen is an excellent watercolor painter. Okay, now as you go farther back, you want your lily pads to gradually get smaller. So in the back here, I'm going to have lots of little circles that help indicate that it's going back in space. So by drawing them gradually smaller, it pushes it backwards. It makes it look like it's farther away. I'm also going to have some groupings back here so they're closer together. All right. That's probably good. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our red. Now mine is a little bit, mine is a phthalo crimson. So it's a little on the pinkish side. But what we're going to do, if you do have a red, you can cool it down just a little bit by adding a tiny bit of ultramarine blue. This is the cool blue. Just put these so you can see them. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little red here. Now the cool thing about watercolors is that you can save them. So you can let them dry if you don't use all of it and reuse it. You just re-wet it and it reconstitutes the paint and it's ready to go. All right, so let's go ahead and get our small brush. And we're going to we've got some flowers. And you know what? I didn't really draw my flowers. We're just going to paint them in there. Okay, so first we want to wet our brush. And I'm going to show you. Let me just move this out of the way. Okay. So when you wet your brush, you put your brush in and you press it down to the bottom on both sides. And what that's going to do is see those little bubbles coming up? That's like letting all of the air bubbles that were trapped inside the brush. That lets those out. So when you are first using a brush that's been wet for a while, then that's what you want to do, is you want to just press it gently down on the bottom of your water. Okay. Hey Crixano, welcome. Welcome to the stream. We just got started. So what we've done is we've just drawn in our lily shapes, getting smaller as we go back in space. And that's pretty much it. That's all we've done. And we're getting ready to do our flowers on our lily pads. And I've just used a phthalo crimson. If you have a regular red that's maybe a warmer color, you can cool it down by adding a little bit of ultramarine blue, a cool blue. Okay, I am using cold pressed paper. This is what I use. I like Strathmore. Like, I think they're a pretty good brand. And so I'm using cold press, and I think this is 140. Yeah, it's 140 pound. That's what I'm using. 9 by 12 is the size too, in case you need that. Okay. So to get, I put my paint in here, but here's the thing. I don't want to dip my brush directly in the paint. So what you do is you take water and just put it on the sides to see how it's dripping down in there. I'm not actually touching the paint. I'm just getting some water down in there, down in the well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to agitate the water without touching the paint. And that's going to pull in some of that color. And you want to go until it's not cloudy anymore, until it looks opaque. It looks completely solid. Okay, that's probably pretty good. So it's completely solid. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just do some little tiny petals. These are going to be the centers of our flowers. So I'm going to do one right here. That is not as opaque as I would like it. There we go. So we're just doing the center like that. Let's see, I'm gonna do one right here. So I'm just doing like little brush strokes, little up and down vertical brush strokes. And I'm gonna do one right here. And that's it. All right. So now we're going to add a little bit more water to this. This is how you make things lighter. So if you want a lighter color, you don't add white or anything like you would in acrylic. You just add more water. Sometimes you can just pull some of the color out into the middle and add water to it there. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some more petals on the outside. Now, my previous petals are still wet, and this is okay. They're going to blend a little bit, and that's okay. I'm just, again, just doing some little strokes here. And that's it. Nothing fancy. We're not doing anything fancy. Now this one was looking a little bit like there was too much going on. It was like too much of a stark line, so I went ahead and just kind of smoothed the area right around like where the two colors met. Okay, I'm going to clean this up. Now, when I have paint in the middle, I just take a paper towel and just soak it up. That way, get that up. Now, you don't have to let, this will dry, so you don't have to do anything with that. You can leave that watery. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of yellow. And I can't get my yellow open. If you ever have a problem where your watercolors are having trouble opening, it's probably because paint has dried. If you just run a little bit of warm water right over this area here, like right over the cap, it should loosen that up because watercolor will reconstitute. So I'm adding a little bit of yellow. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to do a couple things. Since the center should be pretty dry now, I'm going to stick my paintbrush right into the middle of the paint so it gets the darkest color. And I'm going to just put some dark right in the center. Just right in the center. Okay, now what we did earlier, where we put water right on the edge of the well, we're going to do the same thing with the yellow. And then agitate. So I'll let you guys look at, while I'm agitating over here, I'm going to let you guys look at my lilies. Now the idea behind watercolor, yesterday we were being a little bit more precise with our lilies because we were drawing. But with watercolor, you kind of want it to be haphazard. You don't want it to be like really exact. Like that's kind of the idea with watercolor. All right, so I've got a little bit of yellow. I'm going to dab just a tiny bit of yellow right there in the center, and it's going to mix with the red a little bit, and this is totally okay. In fact, it's preferred. We just want the hint of yellow. Well, that's mixing with the red a lot. Oops. All right, if you ever have a mix of colors that you don't want, get a clean, dry brush, and you just push the color away. Just push the color away. And then we're just going to let that dry a little bit more. Like that. It was just still a little wet. No problem. Okay. Let's go ahead and start on our lily pads. I'll just come back to this one later. It was just a little too wet. Let me see. Actually, let me see if I put yellow directly in the center there. Actually, that worked okay. There. There. Okay. Let's start on our lily pads. Now, I did the drawings. Some of these are going to have like cutouts in them. So they're going to have like kind of heart shape. So all I'm doing is just making like these little indents. And I probably should have done this before we started painting, but I didn't really think about it until just now. So that's why we're doing it just now. Let's see. This one. Do I have any more? Do I have any more? This one, this guy, I'm going to do something with. If you remember the lily pads from last night, they had all these like kind of breaks in them. So that's what we're drawing now. I think that's probably good. We don't need too many of them because we're going to allude to those. All right, we are going to mix our phthalo blue, which is the warm blue. So if you are using like a Crayola set, which these are perfectly fine to use, the blue that's in there is already your warm blue. So you don't need to mix anything else. You're going to take some of that and you're going to mix it with some yellow. Now what I like to do is I'm going to pull a little bit to the middle. Now we're going to be using quite a bit of this because this is our lily pad. But a little bit of watercolor goes a long way. So I'm getting some yellow on my brush. Actually, it's not good to leave your brushes in water, so I got to get out of that habit. I'm going to put a little bit of phthalo blue here. Do the water thing where we get it, put the water in the well, agitate, okay, and then I'm gonna start, now I've got this right on the side here, so I'm gonna actually I'm not touching the yellow. Let's get a little bit of phthalo blue going there. And then mix that. It's a pretty good green. All right, now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna paint just the outside of our lily pads. So we're not gonna paint the middle. And it's okay if you go on the line. And just so you know, I'm not being like real particular. I'm just kind of going. I'm not trying to be too precise or anything like that. Okay. And some of them you don't even have to go all the way around. Some of them you can just kind of half do. This is why it's good to have done a little bit of planning first. All right. Now I'm running out of the green here. But these ones in the background, you can just paint the entire thing. I'm going to have to make some more color. All right. Now, if your color's a little too dark, just add water. Mine was just a little darker than I wanted. So just add a little water. It's easy as that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take clean water and we're going to blur the middle. So just paint in the middle. And you can drop a little bit of green in there if you want. Move that around. I'm trying to reconstitute it a little bit so there's not such a hard line there. So all you're doing is you're basically applying some water and then painting over the area you just painted, and of course that's going to pull a little bit of paint into your area. Like I said, if you need to drop a little green in there, you can, and it can do really interesting things. I might, in some of them, drop a little bit of yellow. Just for a little visual interest. Nope, I just dropped water on my paper. I'm going to try to get that up before it dries. And I'm just doing little circles, and that kind of helps reconstitute some of the areas. This is like important work, so I know I'm being a little quieter than normal. We're doing important work here, reconstituting our paint. This guy right here needs some yellow. I'm just kind of picking at random which ones I think need yellow. I'm not even really looking at the picture because I think in the picture this one is like mostly white. You're going to notice that your paper is going to start to buckle a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now because last night I promised to tell everyone about a way to keep your drawing safe. And by the way, it's cheap hairspray. That's the trick. Spray a little bit of cheap hairspray about 6 inches away from your drawing, and that will keep it it will keep like charcoal or anything like that from smearing onto your other paper. But anyway, for watercolor, once everything's 100% dry, I usually take it and put it in between some flat things. Like you can put it, it's got to be completely dry, but you can like put it back in the book, like just slide it in there, and then set this under something heavy, and that will actually smooth everything out and make it flat. Took a long time to finish that sentence. Did I have you on pins and needles of what I was going to say? Okay. Now our little guys in the back, we don't have to worry about because they were solid. I'm looking to see. Oh, I didn't do this guy. I was going to say looking to see if there's any that I missed. So just circular motions. What you're going to end up getting is you're going to end up getting the paint drying in these really interesting ways where like it dries. Watercolor paint tends to dry to the edges. Like if you look at the flower that I did earlier, see how it's now got this like little pink edge? That's what watercolor does. It dries to the edges. So you get these darker lines around the outside. And that just makes it very interesting. It makes it look interesting. And you can't speed that up. Don't use a hairdryer or anything like that. Just let it dry naturally. You can't speed that up. Okay. I don't know why this one right here is bothering the heck out of me. So I'm going to work at this one just a little bit more. Something about it. It's not sitting right with me. Okay. This guy here too. You thought you could escape me, but you can't. I saw you. Talking to the watercolor. You know, if you want it to do what you want, you kind of got to be friends with it. All right. I think that's good. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to mix a little bit of darker green, kind of a blue. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to like finish up if you're still working on your lily pads. Ooh, that is like really, really blue. I want it to be kind of a blue-green, like a teal. Okay. So now we're going to do, I watered this down just a little bit so it's a little bit more translucent. And I'm just going to paint some little areas back here. And I'm not painting actually directly, that doesn't have enough yellow in it. That is very much more blue than I want. So I just add a little yellow and then paint. Come on now. Work with me. I'm telling you, watercolor can get really finicky. There we go. Let's do one over here. Okay. We can actually too like mix in some color here just to give ourselves a variety if we want, you know. Like let's say just add a little bit in there. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually do our water. So we're going to use our bigger brush. You can use your small brush if you want. If you don't have the bigger brush, that's fine. We're going to put water in this large area. We're just putting straight water on here. Now, if you're not sure where the water is, you can just kind of tilt your head to the side and see where it's shiny. Trying to be careful around my flowers and not get any water on my flowers. You may need to get your small brush to get some of these little areas. Okay. For now, I don't want this water to dry, so I'm going to go ahead and work the water that I have. So what I'm going to do is take some straight phthalo blue and just touch it to the, now you're going to watch it start to like fray out. And it will go to the edges. So you don't necessarily have to paint up to the edges. I'm going to, but you don't have to. Now, if you put enough water on your paper, it should move around on its own. Like you shouldn't have to push it around too much. And it starts to do interesting things, and it starts to dry in these interesting ways. This is my favorite part of watercolor. It's just kind of enjoying it, just watching it, where it goes. Just kind of enjoying the serendipity of it. being extra careful inside. Okay. Now it's time for me to add some more water. Now my water has a little bit of a tint of blue, which is fine because it's, you know, now I can see it even better. This is why drawing and painting is so relaxing, is because when you're, you know, I'm talking to you guys, so I can't be as mindful about it as I normally would, but you can really be mindful about it. And I talked about this yesterday in my painting class, drawing class rather, that you can just start really appreciating, like I can feel the bristles of the brush against the paper, and I can hear this like swish swish, like as I'm going, and like you can just really get into that and enjoy the sounds, the colors, the way they swirl around, the feel of the paper, the feel of the brush in your hand. All of these things, just appreciate them. Just observe them. And in fact, appreciate isn't even really the right word, because appreciate indicates that you're adding some judgment to it. Don't add any judgment to it. Just watch. Just look. You know, that's one of the keys to mindfulness. A lot of people, you know, there are exercises you can do. Now, just so you know, I'm not going all the way up. I'm kind of letting my brush, I'm going to just stop right about there, and I'm going to let there be some white up there. But you know, the key to mindfulness, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, you do gratitude journals or things like that, and those are good things to do for sure. But with mindfulness, it's actually more about what you're not doing. You know, you're not adding judgment. You're not letting yourself think about things outside of whatever it is that you're doing. You know, you're not making any assessment of what it is that you're doing. You're simply observing it. And that's really the key to mindful meditation. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in my mindfulness workshop that I'm doing on my class that I'm doing on Tuesday evening. I do yoga on Thursdays and guided meditation on Tuesdays. But since this is my very first guided meditation, I'm going to talk a little bit about mindfulness. And so I'll talk about what it is and why you want to do it, why it's important. Okay. I'm dropping just a little bit more water in this area because I could see my brush strokes. And if you drop a little bit more water, then it's going to flow to where it wants to go. Usually the edges. So I'll wet this area a little more. Put a little more water on it and just let it move around. This is the really enjoyable part of watercolor, is just letting everything just kind of flow. I missed some paint over here. And I keep painting my desk, which I don't really want to happen. I need to keep this on the paper. I didn't mention that at the beginning of the stream, but that is important. If you're using a nice surface to paint on, you know, put some paper or something down so you don't, because there's bound to be a mess at some point, even if you're not a messy artist like I am. I'm a very messy artist, but I clean as I go. So I'm just adding some water up here because I want it to kind of flow into this lighter area. So I'm just adding plain water. I'm not adding any color to it. Just plain water. Okay. Now, I might add a little bit more dark color down here because I want it to be very dark right in the front. Right in the front. Okay. Now, if you notice, up here at the top, it's kind of choppy, right? And we don't mind some choppiness. I mean, some choppiness is going to look interesting. And I'm letting the water kind of pool and do interesting things down at the bottom. But at the top, I'm going to turn mine around. I don't want that to happen. I want it to flow more into... So I'm getting into the white part. So I'm getting some clean water. And I'm just going to paint right at the edges. Dry my brush off a little bit. And then just move that around. So you put a little bit of water there, dry your brush off, and then move some of that water around. Oops. This guy here was still wet, so I'm gonna... It's okay if a little bit of color gets into your surrounding area, but you don't want it to be bleeding all over the place. Getting color at all kinds of places. All right, I'm going to turn this back around. Flux, hey! All right, so I noticed that this is pooling a little bit more than I'd like, so you can either press it down, you can move it around like that, let it dry in interesting places. Or if you think it's just a little bit too much, I see here, I want this to go up against that lily pad. So I'm using my brush to just kind of move it to where I want. It looks like it probably just dried earlier than the rest of everything else. You can always take your paper towel and just gently hold it up to it and just like let the water seep into your paper towel. And that will actually help too, if there's too much water. I'm gonna like move mine around a little bit. It's kind of fun. It's fun to watch it. See what it does. Okay. Now we're gonna let this dry for just a little bit. We're gonna make some dark blue. So go ahead, you can wash off your large brush. We're not gonna be using that anymore. We're gonna use our small brush. So we are going to use a little bit of burnt umber. I'm gonna clean this green up here. A little bit of burnt umber or brown. Oh, there was some pressure in there. The brown was wanting to come out. Okay, so we'll do our little water thing where we put water at the edge of the well and then agitate it. Okay, let's bring some of this brown to our center. Okay, and I'm going to mix a little bit of blue with it. So we just get a really nice navy blue. Okay, now I'm going to dry my brush off. And I'm going to pick up some of this navy blue. And I'm going to come right at the edge. And it might blend in, like if it's still wet, that's fine. I'm going to come right at the edge of my lily pads. And you can go around. I'm just going around the edge of the lily pads. Now up at the top, I'm just going around the bottom edge. I think it's so funny. It's 2 days after my birthday and people are still posting on like my Facebook timeline. I keep getting notifications down at the bottom of my screen. That's what made me think about it. Now see how this is starting to spread a little bit? That's okay. All right, now here I'm going to come in the crease . let's see. I'm going to come in the crease up here. Anywhere where there's a crease, we're just like going to accent that. Let's see. Anywhere else, yeah. Like I said, it's okay if it comes down into your water a little bit. That's fine. Because these are shadows anyway. This area right here is just not dry enough. Let's see. If you don't apply very much pressure, you can actually get really tiny lines. Like that. Okay. Excuse me just a minute. I'll be right back. And I'm back. I just need cleaners. Okay. All right, so this area down here really needs to dry. Like this is just not, I put a lot of water there. Well, and like I said, you don't want to use a hair dryer. That's no bueno. Because you want everything to dry kind of in its you know, whatever state it's going to dry in. I'm just fixing this area right here. So it was very light. But compared to everything around it, it was too light. So, we want to do a little bit of, I want to do a little bit more shadow. So let's see, I need to make a little bit more of this dark navy blue color. I'm going to get some blue in there and a little bit of brown. I'm just going to, in the water underneath these, because the lily pads are actually going to cast shadow. And who knows, there might be shadows of like fish in the water, something like that. It's like I want to add to these. And then after this, we're actually done. This was the last bit that we had to do. So we'll do a critique. And if anybody has been following along, you can share in ArtShare, my Discord channel. You're going to get like some weird pockets. Like this is up here is probably going to dry and like this kind of nice edge. You were going to follow along, but you couldn't find any of your brushes. Oh no. Okay, well, maybe for next class, I'm doing an acrylic next week, next Saturday. But you can actually use the same brushes. Like, in fact, I do. I use the exact same brushes for acrylic and for watercolor. Because as long as you clean them well, it's fine. All right. I think I'm going to stop. Kazmira, were you following along, or are you still on the stream? Don't know. Now remember, like I said, we need to let this completely dry and then we'll flatten it. But let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and sign it. Always sign in pencil. That's the traditional way with watercolor, is to sign in pencil. Very cool. Okay. Oh, that's right, Flex. You said that you were just watching. So I know, like I said, I think there was Kazmira had originally said something about maybe following along. So I wasn't sure if you did that or not. Okay. So let's do a critique. You guys know I love my critiques because this is what teaches you how to take feedback constructively, which is really important in life. All right. So let's just really quick, I'm going to pull up the reference photo of what we were going by. Now, I didn't fully go by the reference photo for mine, but I'm going to pull this up. All right, so this is what we were looking at. And you can see all these dark areas down here and see how it fades out to the white. So, okay, so this is our guide. Right? All right. So going based off of that, I'm going to talk about what is effective and what is not effective in my painting. And this is different. You don't want to talk about, I said this last night in my drawing stream, but you don't necessarily want to talk about what you like and don't like because that's fun, but not helpful. Right? Like you could like something about your painting. That doesn't mean that it's effective, and vice versa. You can not like something, but it might actually be quite effective. So this is like a really good way of looking. I know that some of you are programmers, and this is a good way of just looking at any of your work, is looking at things in terms of effectiveness, because you might like a really cool feature that you put in there, but it might not be very useful, or it might cost a lot. So yeah, it's cool, but is it worth it? So it's all about the overall effectiveness. All right. So looking at this, what I think, I really actually like what's going on with the water. And I know I said like and not effective. I'm getting there. Trust me. Okay. However, this right here, I think is very effective. Like the way that it flowed into, because I had so much water on here. Okay, so you prefer my composition, but the colors pop more. Oh, well, you know what? Actually, the colors in the flowers especially pop more in the original. Let me go back and look at the original. Yeah, those flowers are very vibrant. And it looks like they used a little bit more yellow. Well, maybe. Okay. I think they used more yellow in their green. So, an easy way to fix that, let's say I wanted to fix that. And actually, for some reason, the camera doesn't show the accurate colors. Mine actually looks more vibrant. Let me see if it's still wet. It's not still wet. So like you can see, the colors are actually a little bit different depending on the camera. That's still looking pretty light, but anyway. In IRL, it doesn't look quite as drab. It is looking kind of washed out. But here's what you can do. All right, so I'm just getting one of my lily pads wet, and I'm gonna get a little bit of yellow. And a little tiny bit of blue. I'm just gonna mix this right on here. Let's see, I'm gonna do a little bit of that right there. Yellow has a tendency to make your colors pop. Ooh, that was darker than I wanted, but you know what? That might work out. Let's see. Let's go with it. Happy accidents, y'all. That's what we're going to do. Just add water. In most cases, if you just add water, it's going to do cool things. All right. So let's see. I've got those. This one over here, where my signature is, could probably use a little pop. I added some blue, and now I'm going to mix some yellow, and I'm just mixing right on the paper. Okay, now for the flowers, I probably want to wait until everything's dry, but the flowers definitely we could be adding color. I think the areas around my flowers might be kind of dry, so I'll just add just some little dashes of color here. By the way, Flex, thank you for the feedback. That was actually really helpful. The yellow is needed to balance the colors. Absolutely. So yeah, that's very helpful advice. I'm going to get a little bit of like this red, but I'm going to make it lighter. And of course, because my water's slightly blue, it's going to make it a little bit purple. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for watching and thanks for the advice. I appreciate the feedback. It's how we get better, you know, by taking feedback and using it. All right. I'm going to let things kind of dry for now. Just, you know, let them see what happens. The most effective thing, though, I think is that I've got going on is the water. Although I really like this that going on around the outside. There's like kind of a crispiness that I did with that dark that's creating these frills. And I talked about this last night in my drawing stream, where I had a similar thing going on, but of course with pencil. But the water, it was kind of a mistake, right? I actually meant to do a solid line, but instead it did this kind of jagged line, but I think it makes it look more organic. So that I think is very effective. And like up here, like the shadow areas I think are very effective. So that is good. You'll probably work a little bit more in this top area up here, just making things like kind of bringing some stuff out, making things a little darker. But overall, I think this is a success. It's a nice, you know, watercolor lily pads. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let everything dry, and then I'm going to take it and smush it between like some books or papers or cardboard, something like that, and put it under something heavy. You can leave that for a few days. Like I said, make sure it's totally dry first, and that will straighten everything back out. For your paints, just leave them in the wells and let them dry. They'll end up drying. So think about this. This is just dried paint, right? So if you're using one of these, you just let it dry. This is kind of the same thing. We can reconstitute it. So just set this to the side somewhere, let it dry, and for our next watercolor class, we can use that. Now, let me see. I don't think anybody's added anything. Oops, wrong channel. No, nobody's added anything. So I think that, oh, by the way, thank you, Flex, for saying it looks better. I appreciate it. And of course, you know, it'll dry lighter in a lot of cases, and colors will go to the edges. So sometimes you'll end up with something looking lighter or more washed out than you originally planned. But the great thing about watercolor is you can reconstitute it. So you can always go back in and work things. There's a lot of great things about watercolor, but that's just one of them. Okay. That's it. So if you follow my crochet, this coming Tuesday, I will be doing a crochet stream at 2 o'clock Eastern. We are going to actually start doing double crochet, which is exciting because double crochet is probably the best stitch. It's fast, it's easy, and it's one of the few stitches I don't have to really pay attention to that much. I can kind of look up and do other things, whereas other crochet stitches I can't. And it's just because there's enough space that it allows you to do it by feel. So definitely my favorite stitch. I encourage you to join me. Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be doing a guided meditation. And we're going to talk about mindfulness, which I already talked a little bit today about mindfulness when you're painting or drawing, but we'll talk more about it and what that means Tuesday night. So I hope to see you next week. Have a fantastic weekend, and thank you so much for joining me.